On a peaceful day, a man tries to grab some chips while a little girl looks at him. Unfortunately, the bag that he picked up had a defect, and most of the chips fell to the floor. The little girl asks if he's trying to steal the snacks, but he denies this. That's when the TV screen in the store that was usually only for news requests everyone's attention, as there are some urgent news items. An earthquake has occurred in the vicinity, but the scale of it is quite small, so there are no casualties. However, experts say that the earthquake is gradually increasing in size and power, so measures will need to be thought about in advance. Some students look outside and are surprised by something. That's when something extremely tall rises from the ground in an instant, sending dirt everywhere and breaking the store's glass. Dirt is everywhere, but the man managed to defend the little girl from the impact. But she's not worried about that, but rather about what just came out of the ground. In England and even in Japan, a very mysterious and unexplained structure of gigantic size appeared in the cities of every country in the world. People named it the Tower of Nightmares, and some had received an invitation to be a Tower Walker and be the heroes that would save the world. Those who accepted jumped straight into the tower's battlefield and received the blessing of the interface system, which enabled them to obtain items and powerful skills as if all of this were a game. But they realized soon in their adventure that this was no game. The people who accepted the invitation look at the countless screens that have scenes from the outside, and the tower speaks, saying that a tower impact will occur in their world very soon. Outside, construction workers are hard at work, and that's when they spot a person high up and urge them to come down, while someone also calls the authorities. But this was no person, but instead a demon, with many more behind it. This was the great disaster, where monsters would keep coming out of the tower onto the Earth's surface. It was named Tower Impact. Sirens blare, and people flee as the military tries its best to subdue the creatures. But not even tank shells have an effect, and the beasts were left to do as they pleased. Because of this event, a third of the world's population was wiped out. Those who accepted the tower's invitation had no choice but to watch as their fellow humans were slaughtered. One remembers that the invitation said something about saving the world and urged everyone not to lose hope, as they would climb the tower and save what's left of the world. People agreed, and so the walkers with their special abilities and qualifications started to raid the tower in order to stop the full destruction of humanity. They stop at a seemingly impenetrable wall, but when they start bashing it with their weapons, the wall slowly gets destroyed. A guy spots a glowing stone that came out of it, and when they inspect it further, it's a return stone, which is able to send the user back to the time they were invited, and they will keep all of their memories up until now. Everyone thinks that such an item is overpowered, and Huang Inchen, the walker's captain, notes that he will try using it. He does so, and a blue light blinds everyone there. When they open their eyes, Inkan is nowhere to be seen. He really disappeared. The rest of the walkers are puzzled at what just happened, and wonder if he won't just appear back here even if he's gone into the past. Sakamoto, a former science professor, notes that things might actually be quite obvious. Inkan definitely returned to the past, but because part of the timeline was split up, they may never be able to see him again. He continues explaining what happened using well-known science theories like the multiverse theory and the parallel universe theory. So their current situation could be considered one where the universe's timeline got split up. So basically, when Inchan disappeared into the past, their world and his had split apart completely. The walkers are quite surprised and find it hard to process all of this information. But in any case, what's positive is that Inkan definitely returned to the past. But just because he did, it doesn't mean that something in this world will change. As far as they know, the tower has never lied about an item before, so this stone can return all of them to a world where the timeline was split. All of this is mere speculation, of course, but they can't just rule out the possibility that everyone who uses the stone will get transported to the same split timeline. The items in this tower exceed the common sense of humanity. Around that time, the second tower impact happened in the world outside. So before all of humanity was annihilated, the walkers had to make a decision. Will they use the stones and return to the past? Or will they remain in the tower and eventually meet a terrible fate? In a gruesome fight with an equally gruesome beast, most were being wiped out, and seeing that the situation was hopeless, some began using their return stones. One by one they disappear, and only one from that party is left. He falls to his knees and accepts that today, he will die. That's when someone wielding 2 daggers completely annihilates the once towering beast and asks the remaining group member if he's okay. The man says yes, and that's when many more walkers come from behind him, with one wondering how all of those bastards chose to run away like this. The man can only cry, and his savior thanks him for holding out until the very end. They gave him a stone, and these people were the only hope remaining in the tower. People who weren't tempted in the slightest by the return stone. Humanity's last line of defense and last warriors, carpe diem. One eventful day, most of them are on the ground, dead, and one of the last remaining wonders asks, when did all of this go so wrong? Earlier, while they were fighting a monster, the one who uses daggers urged Jaehwan to attack now. He comes from behind and, in a combination attack, destroys the beast. Jaehwan asks what the casualties are, and Daggers notes that fortunately, at least today, there were none, and the injured will be okay after some healing and rest. Perhaps at this rate, it will even be possible to reach the final floor. Some wave at them, and while waving back, Jaehwan spots that the monster dropped something. The suppressing dragon sword, which is imbued with the energy of both sun and moon, is the sword that the Tiger Ghost, master of the 85th floor, forged in 1,000 days in order to kill a dragon. He picks it up and thinks that perhaps Yunhwan's words were right. They may be able to reach the final floor. This is what he thought, that all of this was going in their favor. But when they reached the 98th floor, the chamber of purgatory, reality struck him hard. Most of his comrades are dead or in the process of dying, so he's the last one remaining. The beast slaps him to the side, directly into a wall. This leaves him even more hazy, but in his core, he knows that it's over. Everything they overcame and did together, was all of it really to die like a dog in this godforsaken place? The beast charges with a flame attack, ready to end his life, but that's when Yunhwan comes from behind it and manages to deal some good blows to it. He urges Jaehwan to get up and fight, as he can't hope to beat this beast on his own. However, the beast is too quick, and it manages to impale Yunhwan with its horn, an injury that can't be healed. Jaehwan screams for him, and the beast uses this opportunity to run the already mortally injured Yunhwan into a wall. Jaehwan can only watch, but finds the strength to get up and pick up his sword. He charges valiantly towards the beast, and now the winner is down to a single second. Jaehwan manages to come out victorious and tells Yunhwan that they should get moving, but his injury runs too deep, and he holds an already consumed return stone. He apologizes, and Jaehwan thinks that because this guy never managed to lose his smile, even in this cruel and often unforgiving tower, the walkers gave him a nickname, Smile Knight. That same Smile Knight lost his smile today for the first time. Jaehwan urges him to go before he changes his mind about this. Thus, he walks away. But the stone Yunhwan was holding is way too shabby, and it lost its power long ago. While walking a set of stairs, he thinks about Jaehwan, who is much stronger than he originally thought. Thanks to that, he's convinced that it's possible to reach the top of this hellish tower. In his final moments, he sits by a window and says that if it's him, perhaps this world has not lost its hope just yet. With those words, the smiling knight's life ends. Jaehwan stops at the door of the next floor and thinks of Yunhwan and how good of a friend he's been all this time. But he finds the courage and resolve to move forward to the 99th tower, which seems to be a snowfield of sorts. While in it, he dodges countless attacks from a beast, which urges him to give up, as this is a hopeless situation for him. But Jaehwan refuses. Or is he perhaps too tired of playing with him this early? The beast continues its attack, and later, Jaehwan hides below it, which angers the beast as it hates this game of hide-and-seek they keep playing. It's been 10 whole years since he reached the 99th floor, and even though he faced countless hopeless situations on his way to the 98th floor, the level of danger on this 99th floor is just incomparable to the lower levels. The boss of this floor is the ice dragon, Velkesis. Its breath, which came from a forgotten land, was hard to resist, even with the cold resistance maxed out. Jaehwan thinks that if he hadn't picked up the pieces of equipment abandoned by the walkers who left, he would have died much earlier. The suppressing dragon sword he got on the 85th floor, the ice demon armor Yunhwan himself gave him, and the Flame King's bracelet. This came from Han Xiaoyul. He regrets even now that he wasn't strong enough to protect her, and her image still haunts him to this very day. He thinks of how she died, but the blacksmith interrupts his thinking and asks if he's really going to challenge the 99th tower again. He confirms it, as he feels that now he can manage to beat it. The blacksmith of Atopos, Jay, wonders if it will really be so. This is the village that was reclaimed after defeating the 50th floor boss, the monstrous dragon Altemianus, which goes by the name of Atopos. Although countless injured or dead walkers came in every day, people never truly lost hope, and the priests had established emergency rescue units to rescue walkers who were no longer able to fight. And the blacksmiths of the workshops created equipment for the walkers, who fought for the salvation of humanity, free of charge. Jaehwan notes that it appears he's the only blacksmith left in Atopos. Jay says that he shouldn't remind him, as he's the only customer he has anyway. More importantly, it seems that supplies from the lower floors are dwindling by the day. There were still some supplies of minerals coming in a few months ago, but now you would be hard-pressed to find any. Jaehwan thinks that this is only natural, as there are barely any living humans in the tower. He doesn't even know what year it is, and there have been more than 10 tower impacts that have occurred thus far. And from that point in time, people were no longer being summoned to the first floor. All of the humans on Earth were most likely wiped out, right? Jay doesn't comment on this, and instead asks if there's nothing bothering him as he goes up the tower nowadays. Jaehwan finds it curious that he says this, as at the place where the first return stone was discovered, there were some very strange scribbles on the wall. These couldn't have been made by another person, but if not, by whom? He says that he found nothing in particular, and Jay notes that 2 days ago, Grandma Hyalene disappeared. People don't age in the tower, so if someone were to disappear, it would be one of these two. Either they returned to the past using a stone or jumped off the tower. Hyalene from Hyalene's potion and Jay from Jay's workshop were the only support-type walkers that remained. Jay continues to be hard at work, and that's when Jaehwan says that he should teach him the blacksmith skill. Jay stops forging, and Jaehwan smiles. Later he returns to the 99th floor, and Velkesis says that he must be bored of playing hide-and-seek. He also congratulates him, as no human has ever made it to the 99th floor alone since the creation of this tower. So, at least, he will acknowledge him as an incredible human and his existence. Jaehwan smiles, as he finds it funny that the last thing to acknowledge him would be a monster, not a human. He notes that it will fall empty in here after he kills him, but Velkesis notes that such a thing isn't possible. Jaehwan gets ready to attack and asks how he's so certain in the first place. Even the armor that he prides himself on is starting to crack. Velkesis finds his arrogant attitude quite irritating and notes that they have fooled around enough, so they should end this. They fight until Jaehwan is no longer able, as he's hurt badly, with his left arm and leg being restrained. Velkesis asks why he keeps fighting until the very end, as even if he persistently holds on like this, the fate that he will face is filled with solitude and crushing nothingness. Jaehwan says that he talks way too much for a being like himself and breaks out of his restraints, ready to attack once again. Velkesis says that another thrust of his sword won't do anything, so he should just give up, as he cannot be defeated by skill alone. Jaehwan started raiding the tower later than other people, and because of this, he missed out on things like secret classes or skills, which were taken very quickly. That's why he gave up on other skills and focused on a single one, the thrust. He thrust again and again, and because he killed over 50 million monsters with his thrust, his comrades thought his pronoun was thrust. He felt as his thrust underwent change, and it became faster, even more precise, and much stronger. As a result of this, his thrust surpassed its purpose as a single motion and started to gain attack power that was comparable, or perhaps stronger, than a hidden skill. But he had an advantage, as it wasn't a skill, so he never became tired, because it didn't consume spirit power. Even if that is the case, this beast's armor is way too tough, as he managed to only scratch it after hundreds of thrusts. Velkesis uses his position to prepare an attack, and it seems that dodging is not an option anymore. That's when he notices a light, the same light he saw on the 98th floor. If so, he will put everything he has into a single attack. The attack goes through with great force, and Velkesis is more than shocked that he managed to damage him. Jaehwan notes that it's not enough, as that attack should have completely blown away his entire chin. Velkesis urges him not to get carried away after he managed to strike him once, and he rises in the air, noting that this time he will finish him off for good. He uses his beam to chase after the running Jaehwan, who thinks that if he keeps attacking from the air, he has no realistic chance of winning. Velkesis pounces down next to him and says that his situation is quite unfortunate, as if there were 10 more humans like himself. Perhaps then he would have been slain. If only his race had not been fooled by the mare's stone, their fate as a species would have been completely different. Jaehwan asks what he's talking about, but Velkesis has had enough and tries to strike him with his claw. Jaehwan manages to get away, and while standing at the door, he thinks that if he had even grazed him with the claw, he would have died. He thinks of his words about the mare's stone and wonders what it is. The battle raged on for 5 years, but eventually Velkesis took his last step, and the system congratulates Jaehwan about a myriad of things. He finds these many pop-ups quite annoying, and he asks Velkesis what the mare's stone is. He says that he knows the answer to that question already, but he will learn everything. On the last floor, he drops the ice dragon sword, which is imbued with his breath. Jaehwan picks it up and thinks that it doesn't resemble a sword at all. Out of some black goo, a door opens, and Jaehwan goes in. Above it, some sigils appear, which spell out Control Room. Jaehwan arrives on the other side, where he sees countless monitors of the current tower. The summoning ground, Atopos. Everything is here. Someone from behind him says that he's surprised he came here already, as he thought he would have gone to the village first. Jaehwan gets ready to attack, but the voice urges him not to be so nervous, and he also forgot to broadcast an important message, so he should wait a bit. That's when a system message pops up in front of Jaehwan, congratulating him for being the first to clear the tutorial games in World 294. His achievement has been recorded in the library of the Undying Library, the Akashic Records, and it will be preserved such that it can only be viewed by the monarchs of the Almighty Land. Jaehwan has ignored all of the rest, as he is stuck to one sentence. What does it mean by tutorial? His whole world crashes down, and the man who spoke with him comes out, noting that he must have found this quite shocking, but he hopes he will get past it fast. Otherwise, he might get engulfed by his own emotions. He says this, but it appears that he's too late with the warning. However, he shouldn't feel upset, as he's done quite well for a mere human. Suddenly, something catches his attention, as the water that was representing Jaehwan's emotions clears out. The creature notes that he recovered faster than anticipated, and Jaehwan demands to know who he is. The creature apologizes, saying he was too excited to meet him, so he forgot to introduce himself. But still, to think that he reached the 100th floor by himself, this has never happened before. He is a demon by the name of Beastrain, and he is the current master of the Tower of Nightmares that he's just cleared. Jaehwan says that if all of this was a tutorial up until now, the real game hasn't started yet, right? Beastrain congratulates him for his swift understanding, but before explaining, he has something to show him. He snaps his fingers, and a large monitor showing the first time Jaehwan came to the tower appears. He watches this with widened eyes, and Beastrain notes how fresh they looked, and it's also been a while since he's seen these scenes. He showed up when Yunhwan introduced him to the party. Beastrain notes that his favorite part is coming soon, and they certainly didn't expect what was coming next. A real tearjerker of a story. He cried so much watching these, but how is it for him? Does he have any regrets? Perhaps feelings of anger or sadness? It's only natural if he does, but these are useless feelings now. But he feels bad, so we will give him a brand new chance. He can start this game from the beginning. Isn't that such an amazing opportunity? This would be something that only happens in the novels of his world, with the main character starting from the beginning with all of his memories intact. Jaehwan wonders what to do, as he was supposed to save the world after climbing the tower, right? That's what the invitation said. But it seems that they were fooled from the very start. There was no way for them to stop the tower impacts, and the only thing that they could have done was to keep raiding this damn tower. The salvation of humanity was just a false hope and a fluke. Jaehwan notes that he probably knows very well already, but he won't return to the past. Ever. Beastrain begins laughing, so hard in fact that only his giant mouth remains. Is he really talking about the past? He will make things clear for him now so that he doesn't get confused. No item in the tower, nor in the Almighty Land, can send someone back to the past. Jaehwan notes that there was a return stone in the tower, but that's when he realizes something. The return stone is the mare's stone Velkesis was talking about, the thing that fooled them. Beastrain confirms that its true name is the mare's stone, and it doesn't send them to the past, but rather, it traps them in the dreams that the mare creates. He couldn't even imagine, until they reached the 77th floor, that there was a race so obsessed with going back to the past. The humans are the only race to have had this obsession. Jaehwan confirms that indeed they are, and Beastrain congratulates him for being so cool-headed. But it's about time they start the real game, right? It's not going back to the past, but rather, it's like a new game plus. He trusts he will make the wise decision here. But Jaehwan instantly presses no, leaving Beastrain quite puzzled. Jaehwan says that thanks to him, he now knows what the tower truly is. An item information tab opens about the tower, and it explains that it is known as the Stronghold of Regrets, the second product of the creator of nightmares, Mara Mullark. Jaehwan notes that he has already entered the mayor's dream that the tower created, so if that's the case, he will hunt him down and go to the next floor. Beastrain sighs and notes that there's nothing on the next floor, because it doesn't exist. Jaehwan, however, doesn't believe them anymore, and Beastrain says that he must be doing this because he thinks the reward of going back into the past with his memories is too low. That's the second Jaehwan thrusts his sword into his neck, and Beastrain's head falls right off. He's quite peeved that he did this, so he tries to ask what he wants. Perhaps a hidden item or skill? He will give him whatever he wishes for. He has earned this much at least. Jaehwan notes that he needs none of those things, and while reforming his head, Beastrain asks if he really doesn't want to return to his original world. Since he has already realized that he's within a dream of the tower, there was never such a thing as the tower impacts. He snaps his fingers, and in that second, the room changes to the outside world, where everyone is healthy and safe, leaving Jaehwan in a daze. Beastrain thinks that he finally understands how it is. Nobody really died, his family and friends are all safe, and for entities such as himself, who feel a sense of worth from living in groups, he must be quite relieved. But it seems he has forgotten to show him the most important thing. He snaps his fingers once again, and they are sent to a hospital room, where every awakened is being held, as they are all in a coma. Jaehwan stares at his unconscious body and asks if that really is him. Beastrain notes that he must be surprised at how clean he looks, but in the tower, decades have passed, yet in the real world, it has been a mere month. What's more is that he will never be able to win against him realistically. As compared to him, who just barely managed to survive the tutorial, there is a huge gap between a human like him and a mighty dragon. Jaehwan sighs in relief, as if he's a dragon. He has experience, as he has hunted one down before. Beastrain finds his cheeky attitude quite rude, and so begins their long battle. Much later, he waltzes into Jay's store, who is nowhere to be found. While working on a blade, he thinks that yesterday was the 72 attempt, and though he has challenged him every single day, without rest, he can't seem to leave a mark on him. However, he did not die either, as it seems that Beastrain is purposefully keeping him alive. That's why, no matter how many days or years it takes, he will defeat him. Beastrain watches him on a few monitors and thinks that he must be patient, as this guy is a valuable product that he's going to sell, a very special product. As a professional cultivator, he has never seen something such as this before. A cultivator ensures that a product will adapt safely to the almighty land, but putting it through a secondary cultivation process, so that the product ripens and enhances nicely. The first and primary way of doing it is by culling undesirable seeds, so that only the good ones remain, which is done through the tutorial game. With this done, the chosen product can truly begin to be grown in the real game, so the secondary process is done to provide the chosen seeds ample water and soil for them to grow. But to think that a product refuses to move on to the next process, should he just hope for the best and kill him? As the soul isn't destroyed if one dies within the tower. But what if he is somehow harmed because of their difference? The harvesters would certainly not sit still at this. He needs to raise him into a flawless diamond and sell him off, so it's about time he raises a high-ranking demon. He also must pay the loan for purchasing this tower too. This guy is so special. Even gods who never make deals with demons have contacted him. At their next battle, he asks him honestly, what does he truly want? Doesn't he get tired of this little game they are playing? If he would listen and start the real game, he would also be quite happy with the results. So why is he trying so hard now? He rises a giant ice wall and comes behind Jaehwan. Before he can react, Beastrain slams him into the wall. He has had enough and desperately tries to get him to start the next game. He will give him secret skills and items. So why in all that is good, does he want to continue something so pointless? Jaehwan says that he will hunt him down and go to the next floor, making Beastrain go crazy. What does he have to do for him to make him even consider going to the real game? Jaehwan thinks that this is what he was waiting for, as now he can use him. He would like to ask something of him. They sit at a table, and Beastrain hopes he's not surprised too much with this information, but his universe isn't just made up of a single dimension. Jaehwan notes that he already knew, as parallel universes and things like the multiverse are common speculation on Earth too. Beastrain would like to explain further, and says that there is one main dimensional level called the Almighty Land, and under it are countless alternations that branch from it. Earth is just one of the small planets in the dimensional realm that were scattered from countless alternations. They call it the 294th world. While in the Tower of Nightmares, where they are right now, walkers can earn themselves skills and items, and while working on their statuses, they will adapt to the system of the Almighty Land and will earn a chance to travel to an entirely new world. As for demons such as himself, they have the role of supporting the game. Jaehwan asks a simple question. Why is he doing something like this? Beastrain smiles and says that he doesn't believe that's what he's really curious about. He snaps his fingers once again and thinks that what Jaehwan is trying to ask is out of the countless alternate worlds. Why has the Tower of Nightmares come to his? That is right, isn't it? Why he and his race were forced into such a fate? His grin grows and says that his world was simply chosen by chance. Jaehwan demands he stop talking about that, as what he really wanted to ask is, why is someone like him operating this tower? Beastrain is quite surprised by this and tries to beat around the bush, saying that it's just something his race volunteers to do. But it seems that he doesn't believe him. However, demons really do enjoy volunteering quite a bit. There are many demons who they themselves watch over other special walkers on different planets. They have made a paradise where humans, monsters, and demons can live together peacefully. The harvesters have had their patience run thin, so they are now demanding he finish this already. He tries to coerce Jaehwan one last time, but he doesn't believe him for a second, as it seems he is also able to read the harvester's words. Earlier, he looked at his status window, and it seems that all his stats were maxed out. Even with this, he just can't seem to defeat Beastrain, no matter what he does. Can humans really be reduced to nothing in this world system? That's when he feels something in his chest, and when he looks forwards, he sees a glowing light coming from some ice. He reaches his hand forwards and touches it. They took the form of fine particles, as well as rough sugar cubes. Every time they changed, they took on a different form entirely. These particles were the essence of the world, and no matter the form, he understood what it was almost instinctively. It seems that this is why he can read the monarch's messages. He asks about them, and Beastrain is glad he has some interest in this. The monarch are the ones who rule the Almighty Land, and generally, the ones who clear the game and enter their world are invited to join their respective groups. Jaehwan asks more about joining up forces with them, and Beastrain explains that depending on which monarch one chooses, their future will change drastically too. If he follows his advice and does as he says, he, the mighty Beastrain, will swear upon his honor as a demon that he will use all of his power to help him go under a great monarch. Of course, this applies only if he's actually willing to participate in the main game. Jaehwan notes that he sounds like someone trying to sell him insurance, but they will do as he says. In exactly 10 days, he will be out of this place. 9 days later, Jaehwan continues to train his thrust, while Beastrain can only watch this boring show. But he only needs to be patient for one more day, then he will be able to pay off those bastards who deceived him with this tower. However, if he wasn't deceived in the first place, he wouldn't have to go through this. The tower he bought was only a first-generation antique, so old that nobody could assess how old it truly is. Those damn mayors sold it to him like it was an extremely good deal though. If only it was a third-generation tower, it would have had the function to forcibly end the tutorial without damaging the product. But now, he can't just end the game without the product's consent because of this fair and square tower. However, what could he truly have done, as apparently being poor is a sin? He only hopes that tomorrow, this nightmare will be over. The next day, he gives him a ton of tips and summaries of what's going to happen. And so the message to end the tutorial game pops up once again. Beastrain asks if he memorized everything, and Jaehwan confirms it. Now the only thing he needs to do is press that yes button. Beastrain has been waiting for this day, so he sheds a tear from the happiness he's getting right now. That's when he is struck once again by Jaehwan, so he demands to know what the hell he's doing. However, he should know the answer by now. He's simply hunting him. After being able to notice the particles, his thrusting motion became unstable, as every time he thrusted, he felt an odd sense of discomfort. It felt as though one of his senses had awakened. He strikes Beastrain extremely hard and quickly. Is this the sense of being alive? Later, on the 91st floor, which was used as a breeding plant, Beastrain notes that he has never seen somebody like him before, and it would have been easier on both if things were like this sooner, isn't that right? Jaehwan asks what he's planning, as he won't be able to finish the tutorial without his direct consent, right? Beastrain says that it's precisely the case, but he has given up on getting his consent a long time ago. But this time, he would like to ask him a simple question. Why does he think that this tutorial will continue indefinitely? In actuality, the Tower of Nightmares is programmed to automatically end 100 days after the tutorial is cleared. So the only choice he has is to tie him up like that and wait patiently for the main game to start. Jaehwan notes that in the Almighty Land, people call him the Gentleman of Cajolement, right? He has lived for 784 years and has gone around a total of 128 worlds to do this ugly cultivation on the race that are living peacefully in them. Beastrain tries to ask how he knows all of this, but Jaehwan cuts him off by saying that he was planning to give him to the harvester called the Jet Black Monarch. Beastrain is now in a cold sweat and demands to know what the hell he is, who he truly is. The prize he has been nurturing for many years here, but not anymore. He breaks free of his restraints with ease, and like an eagle he tries to strike Beastrain. Now he's just plain scared and makes Jaehwan back away. Some way he has managed to hurt him, but when he looks at him, can't believe his eyes, as Jaehwan is holding the overload adapter. The day after he managed to reach the 100th floor, he had doubts, many doubts. The essence of the world was being torn apart at the seams, and that's when the chatter started. After the end of all his doubts, he reached a state where he would no longer feel doubt of any sort. He has pierced through understanding itself. Beastrain is amazed by his power and severs the link, allowing the temporal restrictions to be lifted and his true strength to be shown. He notes that he will not get easy on him anymore, and although he managed to adapt so amazingly after he finished the tutorial, humans have their limitations. He cannot hope to win against him, the mighty Beastrain. Jaehwan wonders if this is his end, and the count keeps rising and rising. They continue to exchange blows, and Beastrain says that eventually, one way or the other, he will have to participate in the game. So by doing all of this, he's the only one that's missing out. The count reaches its end, and a yellow light can be seen in Jaehwan's eye. The same thread of opportunity has appeared once again, the same that helped him countless times. He rushes forwards, and Beastrain is extremely shocked. This is no mere adapting anymore. How is he doing all of this? Jaehwan hits him extremely hard and urges him to listen for one last time. Humans are not toys that can be played around with. They are not insignificant things that can be used and thrown as he pleases, and not products that can be sold. He will no longer be following their plans. He will destroy this place and climb to the next floor and keep going, further and further, until he destroys their perfect world. Beastrain now pleads with him to stop all of this, as there is no such thing as a next level. Jaehwan says otherwise, as they didn't simply call him here. The scribbles on the different floors are made by a certain artist and his anguish. He read one on the 47th floor and got the information that the Tower of Nightmares is just a plain imitation of the first demon, the very top of the illusion tree. He is almost certain that these scribbles were made by Mullark, the creator of the tower. If this place really is the root of the illusion tree, it also needs to have a trunk. So, if he breaks through the ceiling, he should find something. He tries to do so, and Beastrain screams in agony as his tower is being torn to bits. The system tries to redirect things onto the correct path, but it can't do anything, so it announces that the main game was not cleared, but the tutorial game has ended. Jaehwan is transported into a jungle-like world, and says that after so many years, he finally found it. Strange dog-like beasts surround him, and are ready to take a bit of his succulent flesh. One charges in, but with a slight trust, he takes care of it instantly. That's when a giant beast, similar to the small ones, comes into play, and Jaehwan thinks that a slight trust won't be enough for this guy. Instead, He uses a normal thrust, killing the beast instantly. He takes the horns out and notices that the monsters in this place are quite weak. That's when he hears some talking, and when he looks at the commotion, he spots a few green creatures who seem angry that he dared touch the horns. He thinks that even with question, he's unable to fully understand what they are saying. He points at the horns and notes that if they want them, they should make a deal, as he needs only some information. But the creatures don't seem to be too friendly, as one tries to swing at him multiple times. He finds them quite annoying, so in just a few minutes, he takes care of them all. He leaves one alive, however, as he has some questions for it. Where they are would be the first, but it doesn't seem to want to answer. Jaehwan pulls on his antennas and demands he talk in a way that he can understand. The thing says that he will die and bites his tongue. Jaehwan thought they were weak, but their willpower is quite strong. He puts the antennas into the ground and loots the bodies for potentially useful items. He finds a small dimensional pouch, which has 2 cubic meters of storage. He notes that it's similar to an inventory, but it's great to have now, as he's been unable to interact with the system much since he got out of the tower. He thought he would have been able to use the interface system of other dimensional words, but it seems that Beastrain scammed him once again. However, it's a relief he can use question to find information, even on items. He analyzes a stone, which is called a spirit stone, and can be used to increase spurt energy. He thinks that even though they are different colors, all of them have items like these. So were they perhaps crafted by those green dudes? They should be valuable, considering that they are shiny stones. He notes that there's too much stuff in here for him to store, but should he really just leave it here? That's when his sword starts to shake, as it's feeding time. He pulls it out, and it transforms into a set of jaws, which consume everything. Jaehwan looks at what's left and spots a map. It's of a place called Chaos, a place which Beastrain didn't give him any information about. Somewhere else, the beasts are chasing another group of people. A woman tries to throw some knives in their direction, but is one of her colleagues instead. She apologizes, and he lets it go, but only because he finds her cute. She apologizes once again, as she has dragged a gigantic byhorn to the group. Jaehwan looks at them from above, and notices that the woman seems the strongest out of the group. So are they perhaps on bad terms for her to be doing this? They will die if this continues, though. But how did such weak people manage to clear the tower, especially with that level of skill? The man with red hair charges an attack, and the woman tries to help out too, but she unfortunately hits the guy straight in the ear. She apologizes while laughing, and the man curses at her for being so inept. She notes that he doesn't have to be so rude, as she was just trying to help. The man tries to say something, but the beast wants to eat him whole. That's when Jaehwan jumps down, and directly on the beast, ending its life. The dirt slowly clears away, revealing Jaehwan and his sword. They are extremely surprised by his appearance, and after talking a while, Jaehwan gives them the byhorn corpse. The woman bites her nails in frustration, and he asks if that horn is important in any way. The group say that it certainly is, as a byhorn is something that can barely be defeated with 10 people. He thinks that since he defeated that monster with more horns recently, it seems that the more horns a beast has, the stronger it is. The woman approaches him and demands to know who he is, as there's not a single adapter in Chaos who can kill a byhorn with a single thrust. He turns to her and asks what Chaos is, leaving her quite surprised. While they walk, the leader of the group asks Jaehwan if he's really passing by in place like this. Jaehwan confirms it, and the leader notes that it's quite strange for him to speak the language of this place. However, language barriers are even rarer. He asks once again if he's really okay with them getting the byhorn, and Jaehwan confirms that they can have it. The woman thinks that for a mere passerby, he holds extreme power, as he one-shot a byhorn without even using any skills. She tries to use detailed inquiry on him, but it has no effect. But she knows his spirit power should be around a non-adapter in terms of capacity. So just who is he? She begins whispering to him, noting that she has a question. There are not but a handful of adapters throughout the whole Chaos that can kill a byhorn in a single attack. She wants to know who he is and where he came from. Jaehwan in turn asks a question himself. What is Chaos? She asks if he's actually just messing around with her. But when he says no, she asks why he keeps asking the same question. He just stares silently at her for a few good seconds, and she wonders if it's because he doesn't know a thing she's saying, or perhaps asking who he is might be too difficult to understand. Jaehwan says that she knows exactly what she means, but who he is, that question is rather difficult. Where he belonged, and the relationships he had on Earth, all became meaningless the moment he was transported to the tower. In return, he gained new friends and made new memories there. But as the tutorial slowly came to an end, those two disappeared, almost as if they were a mirage. Although those friends that were with him are probably now on Earth, and if he takes into account that the clear reward was to retain all of his memories while starting over, it means that they wouldn't be able to remember him, nor the memories they have made inside of the tower. He says that he doesn't remember a thing, and she seems apologetic at first, but her real feelings come out as she doesn't believe that he has amnesia at all. He notes that he never once mentioned anything about amnesia, but she feels that it doesn't make a difference. Is he the mighty of the abyss or something? Jaehwan doesn't even know what she's talking about, so he asks her to stop nagging him so much. He pulls out his weapon, that is quite hungry at this point, and she's quite shocked. This must be it. This spirit weapon is the source of his power, right? Spirit weapons are a rare sight, and the other party members have also noticed it, making their eyes glow in anticipation and greed. She's mad that somebody like him actually ruined her perfect plan, but that's when an idea comes to her mind. She notes that she will stop with the asking of his identity, but in return, she would like to make an offer. Does he wish to hear it, perhaps? Afterwards, this woman, who called herself Mino, explained what chaos is on a basic level, and also some things about the party they were currently with. Most importantly, that they are a wicked group of people that belong to a clan named Red Fox. She is basically asking him to kill all of them, but he will remain vigilant for now, as she said that soon they will try to attack him. Night arrives, and the leader says that they should sleep somewhere around here, as moving in the dark is quite dangerous, as they might provoke more horned monsters. They make a camp and sit around, with Jaehwan thinking that based on the map he found, the village should be close by. He uses comprehension, which has reached its second state, and hears that the group is conspiring to do something, as they have found out he's at the level of a non-adapter, so it's obvious that the spirit sword carried his battles up until now. Spirit weapons are artifacts one can only get in the abyss. Jaehwan thinks that they are up to no good, but they would be rightly horrified if they found out he got this from the root of the illusion tree. From what Beastrain said, the tower's equipment isn't that impressive, so he finds it quite strange that people are after him. However, now he's almost sure that this place is not the almighty land. The party starts to move, and Mino arrives, first noting that he should get ready with that spirit weapon of his. Jaehwan says that he doesn't have it now, as he lent it to someone who wanted to use it during his night watch. She finds his stupidity limitless, and eventually, the party surrounds them. The leader notes that he's quite the fool, but even if he had that mystical weapon, it would be useless against them, the mighty Red Fox. Mino asks if he really wants to see more blood than usual tonight, and Jaehwan smiles, as he finally gets the chance to see her true abilities. The attackers rush in, but she throws two knives, which land square in their heads. She kicks the other while grabbing another knife and throwing it at the remaining attacker. She lands gracefully and apologizes for throwing the knives so strongly. It's because she's quite angry with them. But from this point on, they are all going to suffer what they just did. The leader says that he became suspicious of her when she started accidentally luring monsters to them. But she is the Witch of Massacre, just as he anticipated. But who made a request to the Dark Forest clan? Mino notes that it doesn't matter who did, as there are numerous people who want them dead and rotting in within chaos, because they are murderers, through and through. The leader rushes in, and says that the Dark Forest clan wouldn't intervene because of something like that. He starts wielding the spirit weapon, and notes that she probably took this request personally, but if that's the case, she will die tonight. She finds his need of a spirit weapon quite cowardly, but he notes that an insurance plan is also set, so she shouldn't worry about him. She scans the area and feels that everyone is at least a stage 1 adapter, with 40 or perhaps more surrounding the area. No wonder she felt a lot of presences around the area. The leader notes that on top of she, who is quite renowned as the Witch of Massacre, there is also a guy who killed a byhorn in a single strike, so preparing this much is only natural, right? However, if he knew he would get the spirit sword with such ease, he wouldn't have called their master here. Mino is pretty surprised that Black Fox himself came, so he must be pretty free nowadays. Clant, the Black Fox, the Red Fox clan master and a Stage 3 adapter, notes that she should feel honored by his presence, as they have gathered half of the Red Fox just for her. She notes that indeed she is quite honored, but since he's already free, couldn't he wait a bit longer? She thinks that if they fought one-on-one, she might be able to win. She tells Jaehwan that she can't hope to protect him, but he should run away quickly, using the stone. He asks what it is, and Mino notes that it's a return stone, which will send him to the nearest fortress. She only holds one on her currently, so he should just use it and leave. This isn't a stone that would send you to the past, but rather to save yourself in the present. He wonders how things would have been if Yunhuan had this stone, instead of that useless mare stone. Jaehwan asks her, if there was a way to return to the past, would she? She notes that the timing and the current situation aren't that great for answering this question, but she wouldn't. She really tried her utmost in living, and if she's fated to die tonight, then so be it, as she won't return to the past, no matter the outcome. Jaehwan taps her shoulder and notes that she will not die. In that split second of confusion, he lunges forwards, taking out a few with just that strike. Clant uses the Fire King's 14 strikes to boost his subordinates, but Jaehwan uses Void, and he cuts through all of them before reaching Clant. He tries his best to block the attack, but it goes through and creates a gigantic hole in his chest. The leader of the small group presents him the spirit weapon out of fear, and Jaehwan uses it to wipe out the remaining subordinates. Mino is extremely shocked, as she thought that he was a dumb, clumsy, and dull idiot. But she was very wrong. Strong, that's what he is. She comes next to him and asks once again who he is, but he asks himself, has she forgotten already? Perhaps she's the one who has amnesia. She tells him that he's quite narrow-minded and also asks for the return stone back. Jaehwan says that he lost it, which causes her to be furious, as apparently those things are quite expensive. They sit by the campfire, and he thinks that this situation is quite peaceful. Mino still tries to search for her return stone, and wonders why she gave it to this dumb human in the first place. He notes that she probably knew what he was from the very start, a human. She thinks that he's joking, as she's also a human herself. Jaehwan clenches his fist, and says that it's great that she is. She looks at him, and is quite surprised by his expression. Is being human really enough for him? The next day, while walking to their destination, Mino asks if he really has no recollection of being in the Almighty Land before coming here. He confirms that indeed he does not, and she's quite envious of him not having any memories. He asks what part of losing his memories is good, and she explains that not only her, but other people will also be envious of him once they hear this, as it's quite obvious why most people come to chaos in the first place. He thinks that it's not really that obvious, and asks why she ended up here herself. This question causes her to stop walking, and says that if he actually knew what he was asking, he would regret it quite a lot. Eventually, they arrive at the Gorgon Fortress, and Jaehwan notices that there's something similar to the summoning ground that was on the first floor of the tutorial next to it. Suddenly, a lot of people pop up, and they all scream, almost as if they are dying or are dead already. He knows very well why people make those expressions. Mino notices that a lot came by this time as well, but now he should know what he asked, how people end up in chaos. He shouldn't ask that question to anyone in this place, as this is the world of the dead. If one dies in the Almighty Land, they end up here, and if they somehow die here, they end up as nutrients for the illusion tree. A few guards come out of the fortress, and their commander tell the newcomers to form a line, as they will be provided with blankets. He continues to take care of them, and Mino, who calls him James, catches his attention. He asks why she's at the northern checkpoint, and she explains that somehow she just dropped by, but it's not like they don't know each other, so he just let her inside, quickly. James explains that the situation is quite different now, as not long ago, they were instructed to check everyone who wishes to enter the fortress for their identification. She's quite saddened by this news, as that way is just plain outdated. She asks Jaehwan if he also doesn't have any identification, and he confirms it by nodding. Mino sees this as an opportunity, and comes closer to James. She's quite sorry she doesn't have her identification. But will this do instead? He immediately shoves the Bihorn horn into his pockets, and notes that she's free to go. He also asks Jaehwan for his identification, but of course, he doesn't have any. Mino jumps into action and notes that if he just pleads with her to help, perhaps she just may, but only if he begs. James says that without identification he can't enter the fortress. Jaehwan starts pulling out something from his bag, and Mino thinks of the worst. Is this guy really going to kill the security troops? But judging by how strange this man is, it might actually be possible. She gets in front of him as to defuse the situation, and that's when someone from behind them asks if there's a problem. Mino thinks that now, they really are screwed, as the most famous in Gorgon's forest came by. The cleanest checkpoint captain, the stubborn-headed Carlton. He demands James explain what is happening, and he does so instantly. So, this man just wanted to enter the fortress without identification, right? But of course, he can't be allowed entry. Jaehwan asks why, and Carlton says that in case that one can't be verified because they hold no identification, the captain can restrict entry, as they have the authority to do so. This is based on the entry law of Gorgon, Article 27, Paragraph 4, exactly as stated. Everyone bows down, as Carlton used his law skill, which Mino finds quite inconvenient. Jaehwan just slashes the restraints for her and demands he stop, as he has no reason or interest to know what the law says. He asks what is written on the identification, and Carlton explains that the name, the organization they are affiliated with, and other things like job, criminal records, so on and so forth. Jaehwan notes that he won't be needing an identification if that's the case, as he won't be identifying himself. Carlton wonders why the law skill isn't working on him, and tries to use it again. In accordance of Article 2, Paragraph 6, he will be restraining him. Blue chains start to envelop Jaehwan, but they don't last long, as they break apart the second they touch him. Everyone there is quite shocked, especially the guards, and Jaehwan asks if he can't just do what this woman did. Mino thinks about what she did, which was straight bribery. The recipient of the bribe and his accomplices are now horrified of what's to come. Jaehwan throws him something and says that he should just take this and let him inside already. James immediately gets on his case for trying to use something as lowly as bribery on the captain and suggests that this man be executed on the spot. But Carlton has other plans, as he has been waiting for an emissary of the Deer Whisperer. He starts scanning Mino with a device that tells them that her soul corruption has reached 15%, so she should take her medicine as soon as possible. Carlton also urges her to do so, and Jaehwan asks what soul corruption is. She explains that it's a chronic disease that people who live here get. One's soul is slowly being corrupted the longer they stay here, and once the corruption reaches its peak, he probably knows already what will happen, that is. That is why the horned beasts, or their horns specifically, are quite precious around here. He saw how easy that guy took the bribe, right? Because this is the only medicine that can help to prevent soul corruption. They move on to Jaehwan with the scanner, but when they do scan him, it emits a red light, as no corruption has been detected. Carlton smiles and gives him the spirit stone back, as he has already checked it. Jaehwan asks why he didn't take it, and Carlton advises him to not give it to just anyone, as that item is quite precious. Jaehwan also notes that he's not the Deer Whisperer person he was expecting, but Carlton already knew. They go inside, and James asks if it's really all right for those people to be let through. Carlton in turn asks if he knows what a spirit stone is, and James says that it's a precious item, especially for adapters, as it increases their energy, right? Carlton notes that he's correct, but that's not all. He removes his glove and shows his hand, which is now covered in corruption. He explains that anyone who isn't the Deer Whispered can't control the Spirit Stone, as the only person who can avoid advanced soul corruption while in his possession is him. Although that man is most likely not the Deer Whisperer, he is still able to control the Spirit Stone. James asks if he can really be trusted, and Carlton notes that he doesn't trust him, but rather, his soul. He remembers that just now, the device they used for checking the corruption gave them an error, right? 0% corruption, and the device isn't faulty either. There's only one real situation where the device to measure corruption is unable to detect the level of one's soul corruption. It's when a person's soul is purer than anyone in chaos. And additionally, it doesn't really matter if he's the Deer Whisperer, as they only need someone who is able to control the Spirit Stone. The inner fortress will decide to do with him anyways. James asks if all of this is related to the Fortress Master's sickness, and Carlton notes that he also doesn't know that much. But based on what he heard just now, There was a certain someone who was going to let them pass after taking a few bribes. Jaehwan and Mino walk the streets, and he thinks that the streets have a complicated design, and it doesn't help that she became a burden. This happened because Carlton, the ever-so-lawful, started spewing his nonsense about articles and identification constantly. And unfortunately for her, Mino had no way to defend herself against this onslaught of rules and demands. They walk on a bridge, and he asks where he can find a good blacksmith. But that's when someone spots the spirit weapon he's holding, and smiles. Eventually, Mino comes to her senses, and Jaehwan urges her to go on her own way from now on. She says that this is too much to throw her away like this. Is it perhaps because of what she did at the gate? Jaehwan says that since he's gotten into the fortress, he doesn't need any of her help, as they are too different from each other. So, she should just be on her way already. Mino bites her lip, but charges forwards, as she doesn't want to let him go just yet. He doesn't know his way around here, right? So rather than asking for directions, she can tell him where to go. Jaehwan sighs, and notes that he's looking for the mayor. She knows of a place where he might be, so shall they go? Jaehwan says that they will, after they finish the business they have with these people that have been following them. The goons are glad that they finally found them, as they heard rumors that the sword Jaehwan is holding shoots fire out of it or something like that. Mino urges them to leave, as only death will befall them if they keep messing around. They demand she speak more politely, as the youngest among them is going through puberty right now, and gets a bit excited when he hears people talk so vulgarly, as it's not good for him, and he knows that. If they want to be let go, they should hand over that sword, and a few valuables, as a protection fee. Jaehwan outright denies them, while Mino is surprised that the giant is really the youngest. The goons urge them to grasp the situation they are in quicker, if they don't want to get hurt, that is. However, Mino is still asking how that gigantic guy is the youngest, which causes him to charge in, as her vulgarity must be punished. With one thrust, Jaehwan takes his hand off, and someone's roof too. They are all quite noisy for such lowly beings, so they should just bring it on already. They are now extremely furious that he dared to hurt their precious little brother. They will never forgive them, and will avenge him at all costs. One of them notes that he's still alive, and Jaehwan, who is unfazed by these threats, just stares at them. They all charge in, swords in hand, and a loud clang can be heard. While Jaehwan cleans up his sword, Mino asks if he takes care of everything with just these thrusts, and he explains that indeed he does, as it's the only thing he knows how to do. Light, medium thrust, anything goes. Mino thinks that he's kidding, but she remembers that there was another person similar to him, who only knew one technique, but they used slash instead of thrust. Also, why did he miss the first attack, and blow away that roof from across them? She knows it's not because he can't control his power. So what gives? Jaehwan notes that when he was dealing with these thugs, he felt someone using a stealth skill across from them, exactly on that roof. He just wanted to scare them off, as they got on his nerves quite a bit. Mino is quite shocked he blew up a roof just to spook someone, which Jaehwan thinks that it's quite normal. She also asks if he would like a name for his technique, like the infinite Asura thrust, but he refuses, as he doesn't like these grandeur names. Eventually, they arrive at the Twilight Dusk, the smithy where Mare was made, and also one of the biggest smithies in Gorgon. Someone tells them that if they are going to order something, they will have to wait quite a bit, as it's busy today. This is an artisan from the smithy Navin. Mino asks why it's so packed all of a sudden, and he explains that the owner isn't here, and the only deputy owner is himself, so they are quite busy today. If however there's something they are looking for, then buying an already completed work would be much faster than requesting something custom made. Inside, another deputy owner asks the apprentices if they want to make a hole in this quad-horn sword, as it will be completed once a jewel slot is made. They offer themselves gladly to work on such a thing, much to Michael's gladness, but he warns them that this quad-horn horn is very durable, so they will have difficulties breaking it. However, he does like their spirits and intentions, so whoever manages to put a hole in this sword will become the deputy owner of the smithy for one day. They desperately try to break it, but even with their most fine tools and the most precise hits, they can't even leave a scratch on it. Michael says that if they hit like that, they can't hope of cracking it open. Quite sad, as he gave them such an opportunity, but they are quite weak. Suddenly, Jaehwan steps forward and notes that he would like to give this a try. Michael thinks that he's probably a traveling artisan of sorts, and notes that no matter which smithy he's from, he won't be able to do it, as even his disciples weren't able to. It's not because they are bad, of course. It's because the sword is too well made, and the quad-horn horn is quite difficult to work with. Jaehwan thrusts with his finger, which creates a shockwave. If he does this, he can become one of the deputy owners, isn't that so? The sword suddenly breaks into pieces, shocking the entire smithy. Michael, however, is very furious, and the apprentices can barely hold him back. Jaehwan notes that he was going easy on it too, but Mino says that isn't going easy at all. He notes that breaking it completely isn't difficult, but rather, it's hard to break it in that precise location, right? So, he's sorry at least. Michael says that an apology won't be the end of it, as that quad-horn horn was extremely expensive, and what is he going to tell the infinite establishment that order it now? Jaehwan says that he will compensate him with a better horn, and Michael asks how a beggar like him can even imagine of giving him a better horn in the first place. Jaehwan pulls something out of his pouch, a horn that came from a pentahorn. This shocks the smithy once again, and Jaehwan asks if this will be enough to compensate, as he doesn't have any quad-horn horns right now. Michael says that this will be plenty, and Jaehwan asks if he can use this place for a bit. Michael orders the apprentices to close the door, and starts escorting Jaehwan somewhere else. Mino also leaves, as she has somewhere to be. Michael presents him the best smithy in all of Gorgon, the Twilight Dusk. This place has the best facilities an artisan can hope for, and since he's the deputy owner for the day, he will allow him to use it however he likes. Jaehwan thanks him for the courtesy, and Michael asks where he got his hands on such a precious horn. Jaehwan explains that he got it himself, by hunting a pentahorn, which, given the name, had 5 horns. He also asks for his help, as he needs to make a sword sheath, and this is the first time he's doing something like this. Michael is quite surprised he wants to create a mere sheath from such a horn. Just how great is this sword of his? Jaehwan just hands it to him, and he begins analyzing it. A replica of the Ice Dragon sword, right? Since it's made by the mayor himself, it's quite the rare item, and its appearance is stunning as well. However, he feels that using the pentahorn horn is still quite overkill, as it would be better to just make a new sword. The sword suddenly snaps out of his grasp and begins gobbling up the horn. Michael notes that he should have expected it to be a spirit weapon, but it also contains the soul of a high-class race. So how does he have this? He also notes that his sword is evolving right now, as its form is changing so it will go through a grand evolution. Once that's over, he will have to give the sword a new name. Jaehwan asks why, and Michael explains that once the spirit weapon passes its evolution, its original name will disappear entirely. The material also disappeared, but it's all right, as Jaehwan has others. Michael wonders how, but remembers that a pentahorn indeed has 5 horns, quite obvious. He asks how he can help, and Jaehwan notes that he needs to see the way he works with the materials first and foremost. Michael asks if he has any type of shape in mind. Jaehwan explains that he will live that to him, since he's the pro in this situation. Michael, who is now sweating profusely because of this challenge, assures Jaehwan that he, the Master of Dawn, will show him what he's capable of. Inside of Gorgon's inner fortress, a man bows to a person of high importance and explains that the thugs were slaughtered, and because of this, the target was lost. The Gorgon inner fortress minister, Yurchin Zieber, asks how they were defeated, and the man notes that it's something he also doesn't know, as by the time he woke up, he was lying flat on top of the roof, as the target noticed his presence. Yurchin thinks that this guy is quite amazing, to see through the high-grade master-level stealth skill so easily. However, this means that they should consider someone who is at least a stage 5 adapter, so after replenishing the manpower, he will search through the fortress thoroughly and bring him here. The man takes the orders and leaves, leaving Yurchin with his thoughts. He is impatient and begs the fortress master to hang in there, just a bit longer. Inside of a bar, a hologram presenting the top 10 of this week, with the host being Siren, plays. She notes that this is the last video of today, and it's something they might be familiar with. A video which is quite popular in Little Brother, and quite controversial, as it's at the center of attention now. The 99th floor solo clear. This is Jaehwan, however. His face is blurred out. The bar patrons wonder what happened to him, as the monarchs seem to like him quite a lot. One explains that the tower received a cultivation suspension, as that demon bastard was up to something, and probably got caught. They talk about rumors of him, how he abandoned cultivation altogether and ran away. So the video must be fake as well, as it's impossible for someone to clear the tower all alone. They ask for some more booze, and that's when Mino walks in, who catches everyone's attention. She sits at the bar, and one guy tries to hit on her, but after she tells him to get gone, he does so instantly. She wonders why she's feeling so upset all of a sudden and orders the hard stuff, enough for her to drown in. While she drowns her sorrows in the bottle, she notes how ridiculous that guy is. A total nutcase, thinking that he's a big shot. He's plain crazy. The bar owner, Claire, notes that she's heard enough from her, as her rambles have become quite annoying. She already has many men around her, so why hang out with someone like him in the first place? Mino explains that whenever she sees him, she gets really upset. He destroys everything without a care in the world and swings his sword as if this place and its rules don't even exist for him. He also says strange things that just can't be understood. She remembers the time where he told her that she isn't human, as it seems to have stuck with her. It's as if she's nobody in front of him, nothing at all. Everyone around here is trying their utmost to live, yet that person appears suddenly and keeps showing that face, which screams that they are different, almost as if he's looking down on all of them. When she sees that side of him, she just can't sit still. Claire pats her on the head and notes that she's still a child. She shouldn't meet or get involved with that guy any further, as she might actually die. Suddenly, a golden bird flies through the bar and hands Mino a scroll, which is from Carlton. She wonders what that guy wants with her while opening it, and that's when someone from behind her asks if she's the Witch of Massacre. Mino tries to hit him with a dagger instantly, but he grabs her arm tightly and notes that he doesn't dislike rough greetings like this. But frankly, now just isn't the time, as he has something that she needs to do for him. Back at the smithy, it seems that refining the horn has taken quite the horn, as it has transformed into a monster of sorts. Michael wonders how they are supposed to process such a beast, and Jaehwan pulls him up, as he must get a grip. Has he forgotten they are in the midst of something? Since he said that he will help him, they should do it properly. Earlier, they try to breach through the horn, but even the best tools rack under the pressure. Michael says that he's tapping out, as this is too high level to process it now. Jaehwan notes that the problem isn't with the level, and uses the first stage of question, which gives the power to question and dismantle the world and its essence, and also, understanding, the power to understand the dismantled world. Suddenly, the horn starts changing shape right in front of Michael's eyes, who is quite shocked. He closes his eyes to cover himself, and when he opens them, he's faced with a gigantic beast. This is how they got into this predicament, where Jaehwan is extremely calm and notes that they should do things the proper way. Michael, however, is scared to his wits. As if this is the essence of the pentahorn, he's been using such trivial skills on it. However, this must be a dream, so he must wake up. He starts running towards door, and Jaehwan tries to stop him, but he won't listen. He rushes outside and screams for help, but is even more shocked, as he is now seeing the true colors of this place. One of the apprentices asks if he's done smelting, and the giant eye who watches over them at all times says that he does not deserve to see things like this just yet. While Jaehwan tries to refine the horn, Michael wonders how such a world exists, and how did he end up here in the first place? Jaehwan manages to strike the beast with a great attack, but it's still not enough, so he rushes to attack it once again with the hammer. Meanwhile, outside, Michael is going crazy, as his whole world has been turned on its head. Eventually, everything turns to normal, and they manage to break the horn in two. Michael notes that sometimes, there are things in this world that are quite useless to try, as it seems he's too old for handling these types of horns, so he should have come to meet with him earlier. Michael also explains that he knows he came to meet the shop's owner, the mayor, but he's been away from the workshop for quite a while, and the only available help left around here is a pathetic human like himself. A person who has never made a tower in the first place shouldn't be called an apprentice, is what he thinks. Jaehwan notes that race doesn't really matter, as he only cares for the sheath to be made, so they should continue. Michael says that he's had plenty enough for a day, and Jaehwan notes that he should just try it 10 billion times, which makes him laugh. In his eyes, it seems like he hasn't done enough, right? But truly, he has tried his utmost. He has tried everything after seeing him work, even if he doesn't believe him. Jaehwan remembers when Jay told him that he's mastered all of the skills associated with blacksmithing, and is proud to have a 99% change of fixing anything. But after reaching this level, he had kind of a strange idea. Maybe he wasn't running toward that 99% probability, but rather away from the 1% probability. Jaehwan knows that he's been working harder than anyone else out here, but does he know what principle triggers the process skill? Michael says that if he is talking about the principle of skill, Mare's process skill was one of the first skills to exist, and it's something that's like water or fire that has existed from the very beginning. How can mere humans be able to explain the origin of the world? What's even the point of trying? Jaehwan notes that if he's saying stuff like this, he hasn't been using his skills that well all of this time. Michael looks at him sternly and explains that the principle of strengthening the hammer and chisel through spirit power and using that power to delicately shape and sharpen the horns, that's it. Jaehwan says that if that's the case, why can't the other artisans use process? Michael says that it's because they haven't learned the skill yet, but thinks that if the principle of this skill is that simple, even if one didn't learn it, wouldn't they be able to use something that's at least similar? Jaehwan says that he doesn't know what the skill is, yet he's still using said skill. Michael asks who even know the principle of the skill in the first place. Does he know the principle of process? Jaehwan explains that he didn't know previously, but he just found out about it. He uses the process skill on the horn and asks the others to look carefully and asks him what he sees. They see the particles breaking down, and Jaehwan notes that it's not going to be easy, as because of his tremendous effort, the walls of the world have become as hard as it. His efforts aren't wrong in itself, but doesn't he understand it? If he tries that hard and it doesn't work, then it's not him who's wrong, but the world. Michael is shocked by this revelation and thinks of the time Mare told him that he's doing a good job at his level. But this is the way the Mare does things, now how humans do it. He asked how a human should do it, but Mare didn't have an answer for him, as he didn't know. However, he should blame the race he was born in, as he can't become more than an apprentice in the body of a human. At that time he tried to surpass his limits to no avail. He asks now, what does he want them to do? Go against the world? The world's an honest one that pays back according to how much effort one puts in it, right? So what's wrong with living and adapting to this place? Jaehwan says that the world isn't honest, as it tells him he can't do things that he certainly can. He may be old, but he still has that fighting spirit. He should look carefully once again, and not rely on the predetermined system, but on his own eyes instead. Michael does so, and returns to the real world, how it really is. Has he always been living in this world without seeing its true face? A world without skills or interfaces, an honest world here no deceit exists. Unless he's been insane all of this time, how could he have missed something like this? He rises his hammer and puts his chisel on the horn, and strikes valiantly. Eventually, Jaehwan leave, as he has other things to attend to, but they have successfully managed to create a sheath, which the sword seems to be quite satisfied with. Michael asks if he has decided on a name yet, and if not, he would like to name it. Since they are writing on it, they should write something that a martial artist would use. Lone Wolf, perhaps. He thinks that this is the perfect name, as it's the only one that goes well with this sword. With that, Jaehwan turns to leave, but before that, Michael asks him one more thing. In the world that he can see, what does he look like? Jaehwan tells him that he looks like a human, without turning his back. He never looks back, but who could understand him in his lonely world? Jaehwan notices that Mino keeps following him, and asks what her intentions are. She comes next to him, and notes that she intends to kill him. Jaehwan asks why she would want to do that, and she notes that it's to have a good life after taking the spirit stone he has on his possession. He laughs, and she gives him some clothes, as it's her way of saying sorry, and doesn't want him to look like a beggar anymore. But what is he going to do now, as he didn't meet the mayor? Jaehwan explains that Michael told him of a way to meet him, and when he does, he will ask him about the illusion tree and how to get to the abyss. She asks why he's doing this, as the people who come back from there aren't the same. He notes that he isn't coming back, as he's going to destroy this world and the people on it. This comment sends Mino over the edge, and she asks who he is do such a thing. What gives him the right? Just who does he think he is, for him to live his life without caring for those around him? Acting as he please, without a single bit of care, and being blunt. And most of all, not thinking that people here are humans. Every single person around here are people, even if they are not as strong and brave as he is. They are still human. Jaehwan thinks of the two who have shifted his perspective quite a bit, and with question, reads that someone has her on hold as they want her to bring Jaehwan back. That person has someone hostage that she cares about, and he's their target, right? He notices some guys from across them in an alley and thinks that it must be them. She brought him here to get beat up and save her hostage? A meaningless venture. No matter how many times these things are saved, the truth remains the same, because question shows him the true world. A world where data and numbers rule, and where there are people who would sell their own soul in order to raise their numbers. He will just have to get rid of them somehow, and find the mayor. Suddenly, Mino manages to shatter his view of the world, and notes that in every aspect, he's the one who isn't a human, not them. They should also split up here, as she's not going to travel with somebody like him. Jaehwan looks at her with wide eyes, and wonders why she looks like a human again. Jaehwan finds out that the guys who threatened her are working with Mare through question, and notes that he should get chasing after her after he changes. Mino arrives at the bar and slowly opens the door, where some goons are harassing the people. The Forbidden Heaven clan elder, the eldest of the three Janya brothers. Janya himself asks why she came back alone, as they had a deal. Mino says that he shouldn't have trusted a witch like herself, and that person isn't coming, because he's going to destroy this world. Janya says that she's gone insane, and uses the secret art of shadows to attack her. She dodges the first attack, but Janya uses her position to attack, which hurts her quite a bit. He tells her that they have put soundproof barriers in this place, so there's no way anyone from the outside will know what is going on in here, so she should just give up and bring that guy already. Mino notes that the Dark Forest will be after them, but Janya knows that there's no Dark Forest branch within the Gorgon Fortress. So by the time the Dark Forest clan finds out, she and this woman will both be crushed. Mino uses the 7 daggers of Akarm's secret technique, but even that doesn't do a thing. She falls on her knees and thinks of the time when Jaehwan asks her if she wanted to back in the past, if she ever had the chance to. Now, she would, as if she followed him from the start. None of this would have happened. Suddenly, a thrust comes from outside, which pushes Janya back. Mino says that she hates this kind of development, and also asks why he's here instead of destroying the world. Jaehwan notes that the clothes she gave him didn't fit, and the goons are glad that he came here on his own. Jaehwan says that if they are working with the mayor, they will bring him here now. Jaehwan demands that they bring the mayor here right now. The goons wonders if he's actually crazy, and one notes that there are rumors of him going against the fortress, so they seem to be true. Mino urges him to be careful, as their leader is a 4th stage adapter. Jaehwan notes that he will not lose, and Janya jumps in the air with his goons, ready to attack. He says that he's quite arrogant, but they will help, and teach him an unforgettable lesson. Jaehwan uses a light thrust, which Janya dodges, although barely. The goons are quite surprised that he has that much power, as they thought he was a non-adapter all of this time. Janya wonders if he's one of the mighty from the abyss. Jaehwan thinks that, up until now, the only thing that managed to dodge his light thrust was the 5-horned beast. So does it mean that a 4th stage adapter is at the same level as that thing? Well, for him, it doesn't really matter now. Mino screams for Claire, the bartender, and Janya says that if he wants to fight, they can. But if they do so, they will not ensure her safety. Claire tries to tell them to not hesitate with their attacks, but a goon smacks her around and demands she not speak anymore, lest she wants more beatings. Mino is very scared for her safety and pleads with Jaehwan to save her. He can do that, can't he? He thinks that she's asking for useless things now, as he's here to look for the mayor and nothing else. He needs to cut down anyone in his way, be it enemy or someone not related. Mino grabs his coat tightly and tells him that she's still human, just like him, just like everyone. Jaehwan thinks about everything that happened, and that strange feeling hits him once again. The skeleton who is screaming at him to attack is slowly turning into a human. He laments this happening once again, and uses a large thrust to make a beacon of sorts through the roof, which the guards see. Carlton, who was also with them, says that they should get moving. One of the goons notes that the soundproof barrier has broken, and that's when Carlton arrives, with a bunch of armored guards. He is quite surprised to find Jaehwan here, and asks just what happened in here. Jaehwan says that he came at the right time, as that big guy is breaking the laws he cherishes so much. He might not know the exact laws, but it's probably the Gorgon criminal law, Chapter 276, verse 4, or something similar. If he were to guess, this man intends to use this bar as a foothold and try to destroy their world by scheming with the mayor himself. Mino notes that he is the one who wants to do that, and Carlton says that based on the Gorgon criminal law, chapter 194, verse 4, and chapter 124, verse 6, they will all be arrested without a warrant for destruction and kidnapping. They try to retreat, but Carlton uses his silver restraints to keep two in place and summons his weapon. Genya rushes in with his sword and they clash, creating a shockwave around them. Genya notices that slowly, he is getting pushed back with great force, and his sword also starts to crack open. He charges in one last time, as this is all he can do, and Carlton uses the restraints to tie his arms and throw him to the ground. With that, he has successfully captured Genya, who surrenders. However, he heard that he is as naive as he is righteous, which seems to be quite true. Out of nowhere, he throws a ball behind him, which creates smoke all around the bar. From the outside, he laments having to use the black cloud in this place, and one of the goons notes that their youngest member inhaled some of the black cloud. Genya notes that he already told him to wear his mask properly, and he might survive if he only inhaled only a little of it, so they will see. Someone from behind them notes that they are quite brave to use the black cloud without the clan leader's direct permission. This is the Forbidden Heaven clan elder, the lustful demon, Hyuk Seolrang. He asks if the Witch of Massacre really was that powerful, and what happened with capturing her and handing her over to him. Genya explains that it's not because of her, but because of Carlton. Seolrang is pleasantly surprised that such an annoying bastard is in there, as he must have surely inhaled some of the black cloud by now, so they will have something good to watch today. Suddenly he spots Jaehwan carrying Mino out and asks who he is. He also noticed them, and immediately charges a thrust that evaporates the entire tree they were on. Genya is extremely shocked that this guy seems to be just fine after inhaling the black cloud. He has never heard of a deer whisperer without antennas, so even if he is one, there's just no way he would walk out so unscathed. Jaehwan looks at them and wonders if they are the cleanup party. He finds them quite annoying to say the least. He charges up an attack and thinks that he didn't want to use this just yet, but he has no choice now. He uses Garnak's majesty, which creates a figure of the beast the sword is made out of. In that moment of confusion, the foot soldiers, who had just arrived, get cut up into bits and pieces, seemingly without any movement from Jaehwan. Seolrang doesn't want to have anything to do with this strange yet powerful guy, so he runs away, noting that he will leave this into their surely capable hands. Genya calls him a rat bastard and looks at his goons and thinks that this is how everything ends. This is the culmination of his life. Jaehwan says that there is no way for him to survive, so he should answer his questions. Where is the mayor that they are hiding? Genya explains that if he tells him that piece of information, getting out of here with his life would prove meaningless. As if that person finds out, he would be better off dead, he's sure. Jaehwan wonders who that person is, and Genya, out of desperation and no other choice, pulls out a spirit stone and swallows it whole. Jaehwan is surprised and remembers what Mino told him, that everyone here looks like they are eating drugs, but this is a common misunderstanding that people usually make. What they are eating is no drug, it's something that they eat in order to reduce the soul's pollution, since nobody wants to truly die. Genya bursts into a grotesque form which towers above everyone. He screams out, as now, he has truly turned into one of the dead. He uses his claws to kill the people around him, and now, he can also see the real world, what it truly is, and what he has been living in all of this time. What good is dignity in a world such as this one? What was he really scared of all of this time? He can be free now, without the restraints of these walking bodies. Suddenly, he feels Jaehwan's threatening glare behind him. He tries to attack instantly, as to take him by surprise, but he stops last second. What is a human doing in this world of the dead? Jaehwan in turn asks what this guy became, as he can't see what, even with question. However, it doesn't matter, as he can be killed. Jaehwan uses one of his bigger thrusts, putting all of the force he can behind it, which takes Genya's head clean off. In his last moments, he thinks of his past life, and a tear forms up in his eye. Is it really raining again? With that, he disappears for good. Jaehwan wonders what that guy is, and says that he needs to find somebody among the remnants from the bar who knows where he could find the mayor now. He walks away from the battlefield, alone once again. He goes to where the injured from the bar are held, and sees that Mino isn't doing so well. Carlton is also on his last legs and says that they need to alert the inner fortress. Mino pulls Jaehwan's cloak and demands he kill her, while she is still who she is. Jaehwan looks at her and thinks that she really is a human. He can't use comprehend on her at all, and his question wavers when she's around. So why would the dead collapse? However, there is no need for any sort of emotion where he is heading, so he will do as she wishes. There is no room for hesitation. Claire grabs his hand and tells him to wait, as there might be a chance she still lives. A soldier urges her to get to the medical facility now, and Claire pleads with Jaehwan to not do anything. At the impromptu medical camp, the medics discuss Mino's condition, which seems to worsen by the minute, as her deadification has advanced quite a bit. Jaehwan notices some commotion outside and takes a look. Alarms are blaring all around the place, urging people to evacuate right now, as the dead have appeared within the fortress. A man asks a guard where they are supposed to evacuate to, but he seems to be quite unlucky, as that guard has already turned. It butches him instantly, and more dead come, ready to kill everyone they can put their hands on. Suddenly, a few people jump through the sky and land on the dead. They start killing all of them, and their leader seems to be a man with long hair and a unique sword. Claire notes that he must be the person Mino talked about, the one who said he will reject all the rules of this place. He wants to judge the entire world by his own standards and define himself what a human is, right? She knows people like him quite well, actually, as she has seen one before. People don't just stay here and adapt because they are idiots. They are doing it because there is no other choice. Jaehwan says that they don't have the courage, and she asks, courage for the sake of what? Jaehwan explains that they need courage to go beyond, to a definition that is certainly more correct. Claire notes that he's probably someone who goes after something like that, and he is most likely right in this case, but she doesn't have that courage, so she doesn't know what he's really thinking. However, she knows at least one thing, that he is extremely dangerous and needs to leave. This contradicts Mino's words, who told him to not leave, as people find their hope when they gaze upon him, so he shouldn't give up on this world, at least not yet. James asks how much medicine they have left, and a doctor notes that they've used most of the medicine to stabilize the fortress master, so they do not have much left. James damns everything, and commands his subordinates to bring all of the medicine that they have left. Jaehwan analyzes how they prepare the medicine, which is just ground up horned beast horn. Jaehwan asks James if they are able to revert Carlton back from the dead, but James notes that if he knew, he wouldn't react like this at all. Jaehwan starts smacking Carlton around as to wake him up, who eventually does so. He immediately asks him to kill him, as he is the only person who really can. Jaehwan notes that usually, people would be asked for help in a situation like this one. Carlton, even in his state, starts reading out laws. Jaehwan thinks that he has such useless loyalty, but it can be commended. However, if there were more people like him from the start, there wouldn't have been a need for him to be trapped in that awful tower for 40 straight years. Carlton's soul corruption rises to 94%, and deadification is about to take its course on him. The anti-dead extermination squad, the demon extermination squad captain Jahir, who is also a stage 5 adapter, arrives inside. James knows what his arrival means, and Jahir says that due to Gorgon's special laws, Article 1 verse 4, he will have to get rid of Carlton and the other corrupted individual right this instant. He slashes his sword towards Carlton, but Jaehwan stops it with his bare hands and notes that this guy can't die yet, as he still has a few questions for him. Jahir is shocked this guy managed to block his sword with his bare hand and says that he doesn't know who he is, but Carlton is about to become a dead, and soon. It would be a disaster if a stage 5 adapter like himself would really turn, so they are here to prevent that from ever happening. Jaehwan says that if he's going to become a dead, he might have something that might help him. The medic is shocked he has that horn, and notes that if it's with that, they might be able to bring him back. Jaehwan instantly crushes it into powder, which the medic almost faints for. They feed both of them the powder, and fortunately, Carlton's deadification seems to have stopped. James is extremely glad, and tears run down his face. However, Mino's condition isn't so great, as her deadification is still progressing, most likely due to her stamina that was drained from the fight. Jahir draws his sword once again, but Claire demands he call Chung Hyo, as that old geezer can use dead slash. Jaehwan is interested by this dead slash she's talking about, and Claire explains that if he uses that, the corruption will be gone. Jaehwan notes that the divine physician has an important matter to attend to in the inner fortress, so he can't simply call him over for something so trivial. Others from the squad hold her back, and Jaehwan tells Jaehwan to step aside, as he won't compromise on this situation at all. Jaehwan looks at him and says that he will be the one to kill that woman, as he promised her he would. He starts using question on her, and Claire demands he stop this instant, as he has no right to do that. The world starts cracking around her, and he is transported into a white world, where he seems to be alone. That's when he spots a small elderly man who looks over Mino and wonders how she got into such a mess. However, he will help her, so she needn't worry. That's when he spots Jaehwan and is quite shocked, asking what he's doing here and how he managed to enter his world. He analyzes Jaehwan further and asks how such a noble soul could ever possess such a narrow mind. Jaehwan tries to use question on him, but it doesn't seem to work. Is this man perhaps the origin of her soul corruption then? If that's the case, she might survive when this old man dies. They both strike, however their attacks block each other, which shocks both of them. Suddenly, the old man's sword breaks into pieces, and this world seems to cracking at the seams. They both come out in the same spot, and the old man curses at Jaehwan for breaking his mighty sword, as it was made out of precious tri-horn. Jaehwan is extremely confused at this point, and just stares. This man is Chung Heo, the despair divine physician. Jaehwan asks what he is doing here as he was with the fortress master, and Chung Heo notes that a beautiful woman is dying here. Who cares if he's with the fortress master or not? He also asks Jaehwan what he's going to do now, as his dead slash was completely interrupted because of him, and the dead slash can only be used with a sword made of a tri-horn, or something better. That's when he spots his sword, which he starts fangirling over quite hard, but Jaehwan stops him. He can lend him the sword if he wants to, but will he be able to save this woman with it? Chung Heo says that he can, so Jaehwan lends it to him. He is quite surprised he gave it so easily. He must be quite confident in his battle skills. However, it doesn't matter now. He uses the sword to go back into his world, and notes that it's about time he sees what this sword is capable of. Jaehwan looks at his technique, and wonders if it's an illusionary technique, but it's more like when he uses question. The old man charges forwards with the sword, and Jaehwan thinks that this is the world he sees, through his eyes. Before he can finish the drawing, he falls down, as his spirit power is lacking quite a bit because he used all of it with that bastard of a fortress master. The world slowly collapses around them, and Chung Heo apologizes, as he wasn't able to do anything in the end. Jaehwan picks up the sword, and Chung Heo notes that he's quite foolish, as he has never interacted with this world before, but he really thinks he can copy dead slash so easily. Jaehwan notes that he can't do slashes at all, however he can do something better. Chung Heo urges him to stop, as the dead slash isn't just something that anyone can do. What he is doing now isn't brave, but rather reckless, so he should stop while he still can. Jaehwan tells him to just shut up already, as this is the first time in his life he's using his power to save another person. He starts thrusting his sword, and thinks of how Mino really looks like. She's someone playful yet stubborn, and a weak-hearted person despite being an assassin. Someone who doesn't betray others easily. But there seems to be one thing left that is missing. He remembers, and puts the finishing touches. Someone who trusts others. They get out of that world, and Mino thanks him for remembering so many things about her. The corruption rate is slowing down, and the deadification seems to have stopped. Chung Heo notes that he's less narrow-minded than he anticipated, but who on earth is he? The dead thrust he learned just now. Why did he do it? Jaehwan is extremely surprised that Jaehwan managed to use something similar to the divine physician's technique, who says that he hates to admit it out loud, but it is. His dead slash isn't a skill, hence why no adapters can learn it. This means that this person is someone like him, an awakened. The awakened are existences that lie outside of the standard system rules, and also an extreme minority of humans who have obtained a strong strength miraculously after rejecting the system outright. They are people who possess the strength to totally overthrow the composition of powers that belong to chaos. Even in the almighty land, there are few known awakened. Jaehwan says that if he's also an awakened, he might be able to save the Tower Master, as his life is invaluable. Suddenly, the Dark Shadow Squad captain arrives, noting that he got permission from the inner fortress, who is also Stage 5 adapter. Jaehwan wonders what he's doing here, as the Dark Shadow Squad has nothing to do with the elimination of the dead. They instantly bow down to Jaehwan, as to pay respects to the Deer Whisperer. The others are quite surprised, as it seems Jaehwan has more to him than originally thought. They all arrive at the inner tower, where Jaehwan greets Jaehwan and asks if he really is the Deer Whisperer, as everyone keeps saying. Jaehwan just says no, which Jaehwan expected. The Divine Physician notes that the Spirit Stone is known for increasing spirit power, and is used to confirm whether one is from the Emerald Bug clan. He's clearly not, so how did he get those stones in the first place? Jaehwan notes that he picked them up from their owners, who are now dead. Jaheir asks who would dare kill people from the 5 great clans, and Jaehwan notes that he did. Jaehwan notes that they attacked first, so it's not really his fault they are dead. Jaehwan thinks that they are indeed greedy for materials and such, but could he possibly tell them what happened after he entered chaos? Jaehwan now understands, and will summarize what he just said shortly. He got caught up in something, by pure chance, and entered chaos. Then he got hold of the spirit stones from the Emerald Bug clan, again, by chance, and entered this fortress. After that, he got caught up in another incident once again by chance, met the Divine Physician himself, and managed to learn his dead slash, even though he has only seen it performed once. Now he really gets it. Chung-hyo asks if he really believes all of this. They shouldn't take these things at face value after all. Jaehwan notes that he believes him, as in order to gain someone else's trust, he first needs to trust that person. That's just the way it goes. He asks Jaehwan if he can inquire on a few other things, who says that he can. Jaehwan takes a second before answering, and says that the body has right now is alive and well, isn't that right? Jaehwan is quite surprised that he found out, and looks at him with widened eyes. He rejected the main game and came out of that Tower of Nightmare by simply destroying it, which is why he is in his soul form. There is a pretty high chance that the illusion tree mistook him for someone who is dead, and sent him into chaos. But his physical body is back on Earth and safe, most likely. He asks Jaehwan how he found out he's not dead, who notes that he said that he got caught up in something by chance and entered chaos that way. There's nobody in the whole chaos who would describe their very own death as he just did. However, is the reason why he doesn't want to reveal his full identity due to something like he being chased or threatened by someone? Jaehwan says that perhaps it is so, perhaps it is not. Jaehwan notes that it must mean he was close with his guessing, but the truth is, he's got something shameful to apologize for. For the last 4 days, he has sent subordinates to monitor him closely. Jaehwan says that he knows, as he's carried one away previously. Jaehwan expected him to know already, and says that he is much stronger than they ever thought, so it was quite hard for the subordinates to monitor him. But they did gain some information about him. He pulls up 4 tabs, and explains that his target danger level is SS rank, his power level, can't be estimated, and he has caused 380 million horins worth of damage to the fortress. Does he know what others like to call someone like himself? Chung-hyo notes that he's just a crazy person, and Jaheir wonders if this guy is a hero or a villain, as he could swing both ways at this point. Jaehwan explains that he might be a hero to some, and look like a complete lunatic to others, as people are calling him by various nicknames. And to him, people like him, are called the protagonists. There is a rather special characteristics that protagonists like him hold, the simple fact that they are famous. But he isn't really that famous in any way, as someone has been keeping his information hidden from the common people, and that power seems to be doing all of that with hostility in mind. If they are the people behind him, he wouldn't have had any trouble with entering the fortress in the first place. He is a protagonist, who is being chased by some kind of large and unknown power, which also managed to escape into chaos by pure chance like he did. Jaehwan thinks about Jaehwan just said deeply. Although he is not really sure, wouldn't it be that person known as the Monarch of Pitch Darkness that is chasing him? He is one of the 12 monarchs of the Almighty Land, but just how strong are these monarchs anyways? Jaehwan notes that he won't dare ask who and what he exactly is, and he also won't ask him to compensate for the damages he caused within the fortress either, as they, the Gorgon Fortress, will provide with protection. Jaehwan asks if this Gorgon Fortress of theirs is strong enough to go up against one of the 12 monarchs of the Almighty Land. Jaehwan asks if one of the 12 monarchs is really chasing him, and Jaehwan notes that there is a pretty good chance that it's one of them. Jaehwan says that this is great, because if it is how he says, the monarchs would become unable to interfere with the matters that take place within chaos itself. Jaehwan asks what they want from him in return, as nothing is free in this world, and Jaehwan explains that he only needs to do them one favor. He begs him to please save the fortress master, 2 hours later, they go down a set of stairs, where the Dark Shadow Squad captain notes that the North Inspection Gate captain and the woman are said to be recovering in the treatment center. However, are they really sure they want him to bring them to the training ground instead of the VIP room? Chung Hyo says that they need to go there, as him and this guy need to decide which is superior, this child's thrust or his slash. He also asks if he's cleared the Tower of Master, which catches Jaehwan's attention, and in turn asks if he knows anything about it. Chung Hyo notes that he does know quite a bit, but he will only answer his questions if he wins, and only then. That probably is impossible for him. After the fight, Chung Hyo wants another rematch, while he is still in the ground. The training grounds is filled with Chung Hyo's figure, as Jaehwan has thrown him around countless times. He tells him that the match is finished, but Chung Hyo doesn't want to give up just yet, as he hasn't used his ultimate technique, which if he uses, he will die, so he is just worried about him. He also asks how old he is, and Jaehwan explains that most likely around 60, if he had to guess. Chung Hyo notes that he's 1,000 years old, and the mere 60 or so years of slashing would never have a chance against his 1,000 years of slashing. Jaehwan wonders if he really did slash for 1,000 years, as it feels like he has only done it for 10 years, judging by his current abilities. Chung Hyo gets mad enough to soar into the air once again and wonders if he will still feel the same after he gets hit with this next attack. He summons the figure of a mighty beast through his sword, and Jaehwan prepares thrust it. The swords clash, creating a large blue shockwave, which sends both of them backwards. Chung Hyo notes that he's not bad at all, but Jaehwan is quite annoyed, as he's being pushed back quite a lot after using the normal thrust. Chung Hyo says that his technique is pretty well made, but what is the name of it? Jaehwan notes that it's just normal thrust, which Chung Hyo finds as quite the arrogant name, as if he names it like such. Then it makes it look like he has an even stronger technique. Jaehwan says that a stronger technique does exist, and he charges it up. Chung Hyo wonders what he's showing him, and gets extremely scared, as this guy is starting to resemble the Soul King of Chaos. His mind wanted to forget the horror he experienced when he faced the king, but now, it has resurfaced. Would he really be able to cut through something that reminded him of the Soul King? Of course, nothing is really comparable, but that certain level of power will literally blow the Gorgon Fortress from the inside out. Jaehwan is ready to unleash the attack, but to prevent the imminent destruction to happen, Chung Hyo gives up the fight, noting that he lost. In the 5th region of the Almighty Land, the region of Strong Steel, inside of a fortress, a man asks what happened to Pitch Darkness. Another man explains that, based on what he found out, the current Pitch Darkness monarch is trying to contact Chaos. The unbending Strong Steel, the monarch of Strong Steel, Heo Yu, asks why he would do that. All of the monarchs of the Almighty Land have already signed a secret agreement to not interfere with the matters of chaos at all. The subordinate stars shaking, and notes that the matter is a bit more complicated than this, so he urges him to look at the screen, first and foremost. Heo looks at it for a second, and notes that it's the video of the guy who went solo on the 99th floor. But what about it? Wasn't it edited in the first place? The subordinate explains that the product in the video is said to be in a contract with the 9th region's monarch of Pitch Darkness. This intrigues Heo, and he asks where the product is in the first place. The subordinate starts shaking again, and notes that he most likely refused to clear the tutorial fully, literally broke through the ceiling of the tower, and escaped into chaos by his lonesome. Heo notes that the cultivator that stayed on the 100th floor should have been watching him. So what happened with him for all of this to happen? The subordinate says that the product slayed the cultivator, and Heo asks if he's just joking around. The subordinate says that he also couldn't believe it at first, but the monarch of Pitch Darkness has confirmed that everything he said right now is the truth. Heo starts pondering, and wonders if that bastard of a monarch has connections with chaos. The subordinate explains that they found something extremely strange during their investigations, as the monarch of Pitch Darkness seems to be involved with the matters of chaos, and for a long while now. Out of the 10 clans within chaos, a few have been in constant and direct contact with the monarch of Pitch Darkness. Heo looks at the tree and wonders just what is Pitch Darkness up to. He tells the subordinate to send the letter to help him get access to chaos, and in turn he asks if he really is intending to get involved in the matters of chaos. Heo explains that he will just be observing the situation as a whole, as he needs to know what exactly is happening in there after all. He also commands for 10 elite warriors of the Gold 1 grade, and Hae-young to be sent. Hyo looks in the distance and wonders if Chung-hyo is doing well in there. He would have had a long and fruitful personality were it not for that trashy personality of his. But now, he's probably living a quiet life in there. Jumping back to Chung-hyo, who is clinging onto Jaehwan's sword for dear life, as he won't let him unleash that attack. Jaehwan, however, has already heard him and asks him to just get off. Chung-hyo gets down and wonders just what kind of man would be able to do something like that after just 40 years of simple thrusting. Jaehwan explains that he probably thrusted around 10 billion times, give or take, but Chung-hyo doesn't believe a word of it, as he would have needed to do 8 thrusts a second every day for 40 straight years, without eating or sleeping at all. Jaehwan says that he can do 100 thrusts in a second, not just a measly 8. If he's asking of how he only thought of using his sword for thrusting, he will answer. Golden energy starts coming from him, and Chung-hyo's eyes widen, as he is now exerting the same alien energy that he did when they first met. It wasn't pressure at all that he felt, only a thrust that bears a hostility which would make mere people faint. All of that hostility is thrown towards this world. He can't believe his eyes, as this child has become the thrust himself and is thrusting towards this world every second that passes by, even at this very moment. Jaehwan already told him that he thrusted about then billion times, and counting. By the way, he hopes he remembers the contract they both signed before dueling, where the loser would have to grant the wish of the winner. Jaehwan starts reading off the plea Chung-hyo put on this paper, who tells him to stop, as he heard him already, so there is no need for something like this. However, is he perhaps intending to use him as his subordinate from now on? Jaehwan explains that he wasn't thinking of doing anything of the sort, as he simply wants him to just answer a few questions honestly. That is all. Chung-hyo notes that he will, but they should take a walk outside then. Firstly, Jaehwan asks what the Tower of Master is. Chung-hyo notes that he probably knows that a mare made the Tower of Nightmares. Well, the towers made by the mares have ranks, from F to S. However, among the mares, there are those who simply do not care for such things as rankings. A master is someone who already made S-rank towers when they were but an apprentice, and someone who reached the top as a renowned artisan quickly. But not all towers made by a master would be a Tower of Master per se. Among them, there are towers that are made with no real intention to perform cultivations in the first place, and only unique towers are known as Tower of Master. Jaehwan asks why they would make those towers in the first place, and Chung-hyo explains that he, and nobody else knows what these masters are truly thinking, as the masters themselves are individuals that are seeking the world's truth, after all. However, one thing is for certain. Among those who cleared the Tower of Master awakened would appear every now and then. Jaehwan asks if he's from the Tower of Master, and Chung-hyo notes that he's from the 4th Tower of the Master, Melville. It was a tower known as the Moby Dick in that world. A gigantic white whale would appear on the 1st floor of the tower and target humans every minute it stood above water. It's not that difficult for the current him, but back then, it was a tower that was very similar to a world disaster. Many of the martial artists of Murim died in there, and clearing that tower was like a miracle. Chung-hyo notes that he also looks like a person who came from a Tower of Master. But the question is, who made his tower? Jaehwan notes that Mullark did, and Chung-hyo is quite surprised by this piece of information, as he didn't think there would be anyone who managed to clear one of his towers. Jaehwan asks if he knows him, and Chung-hyo says that he sure does, as they have traveled together. Jaehwan would like an explanation, and Chung-hyo notes that the story is pretty long, so they should go somewhere else if he wants to hear it. They go to an open bar, where Claire hands them a few unicorn kebabs. Chung-hyo asks her if she's going to be serving meat and drink from a stall for the time being, and Claire explains that a certain someone, who is here and shall not be named, destroyed her bar. Chung-hyo says that it's hard to believe she still opened up shop after having gone through a lot back in the day. She sure likes money. Jaehwan looks at the food and at the people around and is quite hesitant. Chung-hyo notes that he must feel like something is off. It doesn't feel like they are still alive, yet food and drink still exists in a world where people don't feel hunger, isn't that right? He finished chugging his drink and explains that chaos was originally a blessed world. This place was one where souls that were worn out from the Almighty Land's war went to their well-deserved rest. Everyone was able to regain their lives after being released from them. The warriors dropped their swords and bows, while wandering minstrels sang about peace and no wars. Jaehwan notices a few drunkards fighting and thinks that is because of the drink, but when he goes to taste it, the mead tastes just like water. Chung-hyo explains that drunkards do not exist in this world, as they are just acting like they are. In chaos, one doesn't get drunk, hungry, or old after all. However, in such a paradise, humans started to want the opposite. They missed real life, which had the chance of death, and started to act like they were living true real life. A life where if they didn't eat, they would die, and if they drank the mead, they would get drunk. A life where they have a physical real body and a beating living heart. However, one random day, drunkards started to appear, an expedition of dreams, of the impossible, and gathers people together to rediscover real life. That would be the Abyss Expedition. Jaehwan asks why they would head to the Abyss in the first place, and Chung-hyo notes that it's to look for the fruit of resurrection. It's a fruit that hangs on the branches of the illusion tree at the end of the Abyss. Jaehwan is intrigued by this. Can somebody who is dead really be revived? Chung-hyo confirms that the fruit does exist, and is the only way that the dead of this world could ever come back alive. The Abyss Expedition is an alliance formed for the sake of seeking that fruit, and at the time, he had awakened already, and was at the age where he was basically fearless. Jaehwan asks if Mullark was also part of that expedition, and Chung-hyo confirms that he was, the leader of the expedition actually. He was a really unique existence. He remembers the first time he met him, where Mullark applauded him for becoming an incomplete awakener without abandoning his emotions. He is truly walking a unique path among others. Chung-hyo asks him to save those words for someone else, and Mullark wonders if he's upset because of cultivation. Chung-hyo throws his sword at him and asks why a mayor like him would want to go to the Abyss, as they usually coop themselves in a room and create towers. Mullark notes that he has no words for that, as apologizing would be useless right now, because that is something that he has to carry with him for the rest of his life. Chung-hyo was surprised that he actually regretted making the towers, and Mullark says that it's okay if he doesn't believe him, but the reason he went to the illusion tree and going to the Abyss is because of that tower. The one that would end all cultivation, that his reason for joining this expedition. Jaehwan asks if the expedition was successful. Chung-hyo explains that he was only able to reach the entrance of the Abyss because he fell behind on the way, but it does seem that Mullark reached the top of the illusion tree, because a lot of fruits began to drop from the branches. Thanks to that, each of the expedition members were able to go back to chaos with lots and lots of fruits. Jaehwan thinks that if it is so, why is this old man still in chaos? Claire urges him to get his facts straight, as that expedition was a failure, and he knows that all too well. Chung-hyo explains that they only succeeded up to the part where they obtained the fruit, as when they were heading back, those bastards were waiting for them at the entrance, ready. The monarchs and the patriarchs of the almighty land. While they didn't muster up enough courage to go back into the Abyss, the 4 fortress masters and 10 faction leader who were also a part of the expedition weren't a match for those guys at all. There was a crystal clear difference in power, and were in a totally different league. That was how the fruit was stolen from their hands, and those bastards used the fruits that they stole to revive themselves each time they died. They have been doing that for well over 900 years. It's as if they had another place that's built for them, a place known as the Resurrection Palace. The monarchs and 5 great families take turns reviving their dead, and it was decided from the start who would live, the only ones who could live actual proper lives. Jaehwan thinks that this must be why everyone around here is so lethargic, as they know that the real life they wanted, the fruit, was stole away from them. Jaehwan wants to ask more about Mullark, but Claire tells him to drop it, as he's passed out drunk. But based on what she heard, after the expedition was finished, nobody ever saw Mullark ever again. It's almost as if he fell off the earth. James comes around and thanks him for the help, as if it wasn't for him, his captain would have surely died. Jaehwan seems to have forgotten about him, and James explains that the next time he enters Gorgon, he should do so through the North Gate, as he won't need identification there. Of course, they should keep this a secret from the captain. With that, he leaves, and that's when Jahir calls for the divine physician. He is clearly distraught, and notes that they've got some big trouble. They all rush as fast as they can, and Jaehwan can feel the energy around. Judging by this, it means that the fortress master is in that state already, a full dead. The spiritual pressure he is feeling right now much more than what he felt from the dead that he fought previously. It's coming from deep within the fortress, or rather, more accurately, beneath from it. This makes him think of urine, and the favor he asked him for with a serious face. He remembers that he said that he won't have to pay for any of the damage he caused inside of the fortress, and will additionally provide him with protection should it be necessary. All he needs to do for them is one favor: to save the fortress master. Jaehwan notes that their fortress master is going through deadification, and Jaehir says that indeed he is right. He explains that out of nowhere he just went berserk, which is weird, because usually it only happens like once a week, but today, of all days, it just happened. He is telling him all of this in advance, just in case he gets the wrong idea about things. The fortress master is a really good person, and before his deadification unfortunately began, he was basically a living legend, since he was someone who also went to the Abyss expedition, with Mullark and the Divine Physician. This makes Jaehwan pay more attention to the conversation at hand, and Jaehir says that, from what he saw at least, he is also able to perform the dead slash, right? Since the Divine Physician is in that poor state, can't he do it in his stead? Jaehwan outright refuses him, as he simply imitated what this old head did, and is certainly not as good as him. This might have been different had he learnt from him, though. Suddenly, the ground starts to tremor beneath their feet, and Jaehir now fears the worst, as he knows what that is. Suddenly, a surge of dead energy comes out of the fortress and releases a large shockwave all around. Jaehir covers himself, but that's when he notices two peculiar people standing at the top of the fortress: the Disruption Tower Captain and the Despair Tower Captain. They say that it's been a while since they met, and Jaehwan hears their whispers, which say that the guy carrying the Divine Physician is the one who can also use Dead Slash. Jaehir pleads with them to step aside, as there is an urgent matter they must attend to, but they also probably know what already. They descend, and note that what he is asking them to do is quite a problem, as they have their orders that need to be completed. Jaehir asks whose orders are those, and with a stern look on his face, demands to know if they are really intending to go against the wishes of the heavens like this. They say that the only heaven they have, and worship, is the forbidden heaven. They rush in and jump in the air, preparing to attack. Jaehir notices how fast they were, and pushes Jaehwan out of the way before anything can happen to him. They both land at the same time, creating a large explosion upon impact, but Jaehir managed to block the both of them with only his blade. Jaehwan watches him and notes that he is doing quite well. Jaehir thinks that he didn't expect at all that the Forbidden Heaven clan would have people inside of the fortress. He notes that they grew quite a lot for outer fortress residents, but still, do they even know who they are facing right now? They say that he shouldn't underestimate them so much, as they are not the same people anymore. Jaehir advises the both of them to think very carefully about this, as if they turn back now, the fortress master will surely forgive them. One of them notes that if he's talking about the same fortress monster that is being locked up down there now, he can forget it. That thing, because it can't be called human anymore, can't even control its own strength, and can't distinguish between good and evil anymore. That is not the same heaven that they served. Him being the extermination squad captain and all, why is he still serving the thing he swore to destroy, despite the current situation? Jaehir looks at them dead in the eyes, and notes that he believes, with all of his heart, that the Tower Master will return to what he was originally. Suddenly, Other comes behind him and swings the hammer at his head. Before Jaehir can react, the hammer lands, throwing him into a wall. If only he would have been a little more wiser, they wouldn't have had to fight like this. Isn't that the case? Jaehir tries to get up to his feet, and thinks that these two are just stage 4 adapters, so there is no way they could defeat someone like himself, who is a stage 5 adapter, even though he is outnumbered. How are they doing this much damage in the first place? He can't even estimate how fast or strong they are anymore, as this isn't any type of normal growth he has ever seen. It's almost as if they received the boost from the deadification. Something is seriously wrong here, and this is starting to get too dangerous. He tries to tell Jaehwan to leave while he still can, but Jaehwan is having none of it, and throws Chung Hyo at him, who is still passed out, even after all of this. Jaehwan explains that this was revenge for pushing him earlier, and that's when the disruption team captain grabs his attention. He asks if he really is able to perform the dead slash, just like the Divine Physician. Jaehwan asks what it is to them, and they start talking between each other using telepathy, which Jaehwan can see. They gather that the guy in front of them is a non-adapter, so he is probably talking nonsense. What can he really do with that short sword of his? Also, his physique isn't great, so he won't even be able to throw a proper punch, they think. Jaehwan instantly